Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming again to the Belief Breakthrough Podcast. Today is going to be a special event because I actually have a guest here that's very dear to my heart, and she's going to help me get closer to who I am. And you know, I already went through all the crap that I went through, so I'm very excited. Alex, please introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Alex Bynum. I'm a spiritual guide and energy healer in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, and sometimes in Boston. I've been doing this for 9 years, and I'm excited to share with you today what the heck that even means and what ancient lineage I'm a part of, that these tools help to facilitate or expedite personal growth. So thanks for having me, Patrick.
Well, I'm all thankful for you because you're going to help me get to the next level of my life, and I'm always about optimizing myself as I help optimize everybody else. But in this podcast, what we're going to be talking about is the beliefs and how we got to the success that we have today in that way. So we're going to be taking my different stories. And because I know a little bit of your story, I understand that there's an aspect of faith, spirituality, and the feeling of your gut. Now, I'm all about the gut, but what I love about what you've told me so far is you actually believe in your faith and your spirituality over your gut.
Yes, I do.
So I'm very curious to find out a little bit more what that means. So my first question, and let's give everyone a little bit more of your past. Why are you so successful in the world that you are in now?
The word successful is kind of funny to me because I think everyone has a different definition. But
what is your definition?
For me, when I hear successful, it means somebody that has gotten out of their own way enough to serve humanity. So I've gotten out of my way enough to be able to help people. Am I at the top of the mountain? No. Am I climbing the mountain? Yes. Which means I can reach back and help people that are climbing too, depending on how far I've climbed up the mountain. So what did you ask me? Well,
it was your definition of success was the very first thing, but that I want to touch base on that. Like a lot of people have different definition of success. A lot of people think about it as money, materialistic things, and I'm not saying that's bad, but that's how they define it. Or winning, the aspect of winning. But you split it. You spun it in a way where it's like it's not winning; it's getting out of your own way.
Yes.
So you can help other people, and the more you can get out of your own way, the more you can help other people is your definition. And I find that to be absolutely fascinating and in that way. But the second part of the question is, why do you think your level of success, you're successful in it? You're climbing up the mountain. No one's ever at the top, right? But why are you there?
Yeah, I think I'm successful because I keep going when it sucks. And a lot of people don't keep going when it sucks. And I've just kept going at it, even when I was in my shit, even when I was just feeling like I couldn't help people, because you know how sometimes you have those feelings like I'm too messed up to help people, or I'm too, you go through all those those thoughts with yourself. It was like, no, we don't ever acknowledge like what we've been through, or you do on this podcast, but we don't really acknowledge how far we've come. And so depending on where you are, almost always there's someone that you can help. So for me, success is like, when I go to bed, did I help someone that day? And that's kind of what it is. It's really starting to change the older I get, which I suppose that happens. But, it used to be the lights and the cameras and the action, and that's still cool and everything. But it's like, no, at the end of the day, did I help somebody? Did I help somebody to know themselves? Did I help somebody to heal themselves? And that's kind of where I'm at.
Well, that's awesome to hear. Like within the Freedom Mastery experience, I take what we call the beginning part of the journey is a person's hot mess. And I work with the functional person, the person that's actually making their hot mess work. So I call them the functional hot mess, and I turn them into the intuitive high performer, right? Nice. We all have all these aspects in going through that journey. Now, this is going to be the fun part. Your journey has experiences. So to be successful, you have to help people. You go to put your head to sleep at night and you say, I helped somebody. But what are some of the experiences?
Yeah.
What is your shit? Like, what is your suck? Like, tell me a couple of.
What are some of the hot messes?
Hot messes that you were just like, I can't, but I'm going.
There's several hot messes that I've managed to clean up pretty well. One of them, big one, was food for a long time. I had an eating disorder for 17 years. and I was a hot mess. I couldn't be in a room and not think about food, what I was eating, how many calories I was burning, how much I was exercising, when I was going to throw up. Did I eat that day? Should I have eaten that day? Like the whole thing. Am I allowed to cuss on this show?
Be my guest. I don't care.
The whole freaking thing. It was just like I could not be present because I couldn't get out of my own head about food thoughts. So I was a hot mess for a long time with an eating disorder, and that took me 17 years to heal. And now it's pretty cool because I don't think about food. I kind of just eat what I want. And it's funny, like sometimes, like, I'll go to a fitness class or something, and they'll be like, like, what do you eat for breakfast? And try to give me advice. And I'm like, you know what, like, just, I'm good. Like, thank you. So
awesome.
I feel victorious over the eating disorder in terms of one of my hot messes. What's another hot mess? I've got lots of hot messes from my past.
That's what dictate who we are. And that's what this whole podcast is about, is everyone looks at a person as successful and they only see the end. I want people to start seeing all the things that they had to go through to make it there.
I want
the person that should tell their story.
I once went to this event, and it was a bunch of successful people telling how they fucked up in life. And I thought it was like the best event ever because they were just,
I want to hold one of those now.
It was called like How I Failed or something like that. And they were just telling all the stories of their failures. And it was like the best thing because they were just so relatable versus like on this pedestal that no one could talk to. So that was really nice. But I would recommend.
That's what I love the most in that way, is to have a person be vulnerable in that way. And a lot of people don't like talking about it, but the people that are really successful want to help other people. And the only way you can help another person is showing them that I made it through it. If I can make it through it, you can make it through it. You have to find out what's stopping you.
Yeah, there's a suffering's a funny thing because it's part of life and we all suffer, but there's something that comes with suffering for some people where you realize, like, I just don't want people to suffer like I had to suffer. Like, I don't wish for anybody to have a 17-year eating disorder. Like, I wouldn't want that.
Well, that's why you went through it, so you could speed somebody else through it.
Yeah, I'm like, let's get through this because that's not okay. That's too long. So yeah, so that's one of my hot messes. I can go into more, or we can keep going.
No, actually, I do have a question. What is the actual, like, the pinnacle, the one thing, I know we all have stories, but going into it, there was one incident that changed your trajectory of your life. You started talking about it beforehand. Please tell me that story.
This is going to sound a little woo-woo, and I hope that's okay. I am a spiritual healer.
I'm all about that.
I've been thinking about this a lot, and I actually usually tell my story about how I got meningitis, but there's actually something else that happened that I've been thinking about a lot. So when I was 7, I was in a terrible car accident, and it was so bad they thought I was dead on scene. They told my parents I was dead, but I was not dead. And what happened was I had hit the seat, or hit my legs, or hit the seat in front of me so hard that it broke my jaw. So there was like blood everywhere. And that's why they thought I was dead, because they just saw blood, and me bent over. But something happened that day where there was this moment where it was like, I could have chosen to die that day if I wanted to, but something in me chose to stay and fight and be here for this life. And I've really been thinking about that. And it's I know I was 7, but it's a pinnacle moment for me where I was like, I could have checked out of this whole game like earlier than I had to. And so I chose to stay, and I chose to like help. And I'm really proud of that. So that's just, it's something that's been on my mind a lot lately, just thinking about that moment in time, and that I'm still here.
So one of the things that we walk through my whole process in the Freedom Mastery experiences is getting a person to realize they are a sum of their experiences. But I normally go through generational learning where your parents put you through different things, but you had an experience nonetheless. And the reason why I'm so grateful for you to tell me that story is because it's still an experience. Your parents didn't really do it to you, but you still had the experience, and your experience gave you a complete glimpse into the higher power, being able to check out. Now at 7, you don't really have that recognition, right? Thought process, that logic, but you had that choice. Now looking back, you didn't take that choice. You chose to fight.
Right.
So that belief is now stuck in you from a very early on. And I guarantee you, you decided to fight through the rest of the things that you're doing. You acknowledged it and you decided to fight. So learning how to fight is looking at an opposing force, right? And you have to go through it, right? So now my other question that comes up to it, now that I'm starting to dig down on one of the beliefs that dictate who you are, that made you successful, this fight that came on from an accident and you chose to live, what other experiences have you had to fight? Like you had to go through it and go through your shit, like you said.
Yeah, well, I've almost died 4 times, so that's only one.
So now you're showing me a pattern, girl. You're like a
apparently I need this lesson. I've had several other times. I was an EMT. There was a gun pulled on me at one point. I went through that. And then one of the bigger stories is I got meningitis, and they don't know how I got it. And I was the only case in Massachusetts. And, I'm lying in the hospital bed, and it's, I've been in the hospital for like a week, and I'm on morphine and all that. And there was just this defining moment where I was like talking to God or the universe or higher power. And I was like, you know what? Like, please use me, like help my life. Like, please help me to serve others, or just like, let me go. So we're kind of coming back to the same thing of like, I'm either going to stay and fight, or I don't want to like be here. And so I think it elevated to the next level, because it was like, originally with the car accident, it was like, I'm going to choose to live, but this was, I'm going to choose to live to help people, or otherwise, like, this isn't going to work for me. So it was almost like I was renegotiating. It was like, okay, I'll live, but I need to be of service if I'm going to live. So that kind of led me down the spiritual path.
So the thing I'm trying to write down desperately is, like, you're showing me a big faith aspect, but that there's something bigger that's now calling you and pulling you to your next destination. And now you're renegotiating terms, but you said this happened 4 times. Like you went through the same example, the same experience 4 different times. Now, each one of those times, did your life go down to rock bottom, literally, and then you excelled up and you got better every single time doing bigger things? Is that something that happened?
Yeah, it's almost like I had to go to the next level. Like, it's almost like when you hit rock bottom, you have to like go higher.
Correct.
Then you can. So I think that's what was happening in those scenarios. I hope I'm done with this pattern, because like I'm good. Like I just want to put that out there.
You like to play some risky business right there.
Dying over and over again. But yeah, I would definitely say that it forced me to elevate to the next level.
So I know you play all in, right? Apparently you play all in. You put all the chips on the line in your experience. But like, if you had to tell someone or get someone to understand, when you hit rock bottom, it does suck. What is something that you can do in those moments when you decided to talk to God, when you decide to lean into your faith? Like, you trust faith so much. And now I understand you're such not push away the gut, but why you lean so much into faith, because of those experiences, right?
Right.
How would you help someone understand, like, when they go down into that low place, what is it like to pull yourself back out?
That's a great question. It's funny. I've worked with a lot of clients, and some people say they're at rock bottom, but they're not. And sometimes I feel like when someone's at rock bottom, when you're at rock bottom. Like for me, I almost had to die to realize I was at rock bottom. So what would I say to someone in those moments? Well, I think if somebody's really at rock bottom, they know they're really at rock bottom. And it's that choice of, I'm either gonna, you got to make a choice. I'm either gonna live or I'm not gonna live. And it's a choice.
Even to make that choice, like,
and it doesn't have to be a life or death experience, because how do you want to define living? For me, living is being able to serve. But for most people, for some people, living is, being able to buy a Maserati, which is fine. Like, that's great. I love cars. But like, what is your definition of living? What does it mean to be alive to you? And so I would say, when you're at rock bottom, you've got to make the choice to live based on like what you're looking for.
So it's defining what your life would be like. And in your case, you want to serve.
That's what I want. Yeah. I mean, I've known that from a young age, that's what I wanted to do. But I also understand that's not everyone's path. So I would say, define what living is for you. For some people, it's just a lot of self-expression, or being a comedian or whatever. And that serves in its own way. And that serves in its own way too. Like we need all these things, but just define what living is for yourself and go for it.
So to clarify, if you are in a rock bottom moment and you're having trouble, a good thing that you could do, tell me if I'm wrong, is actually define what your life wants to be and what you want life to be like. Start there.
Define to yourself what it means to be alive. Because awesome. if you're at rock bottom, you're not really living usually. So what do you want to do to be alive?
Okay. All right. So now that we have your belief that I chose to fight as well as not die. Just put those two things. I'm not a big fan of dying, so I'm good. But I'm a little stubborn, so I'm gonna go through that a couple of times because that's how we all learn, right? But you play for keeps. Then it's a matter of learning that you have to go through your ish and learn through your stuff, through your beliefs, all the other beliefs that's happening in life, to understand that you're here for a bigger reason and you're leaning into faith and you're not going for your gut. But now you keep on using this word light, right? How does going into your trusting your light come into that?
That's a funny thing, because if you've really got to define your own personal experience with the light. Like I can't give someone a term for light. Like you have to make it personal to yourself. The reason I don't always trust my gut is because my gut is filled with a lot of trauma, and sometimes it can lead me astray. So you've got to be clear on, like, is my gut leading me back towards trauma patterns, or is my gut leading me towards the light? And that can be really confusing without some anchoring to, like, what is light, which is why, you know, people use different things to get there: faith, meditation, prayer, rituals. I can't define that for someone else, but I often, when I say it, people kind of like, oh, I kind of know what that is, or they'll remember an experience with the light. So that's why I'm not a huge fan of trust your gut, because trusting your gut can get you in trouble.
Because when people do work with the mental side of trust your gut, that's when they start to lead with their emotions. When within the first pillar of the Freedom Mastery experience, which is all about dismantling the beliefs and identifying them, but you have to be inside your body to know, and your organism technically doesn't want to die, right? It's hardwired to do so. So when something's in danger, it's going to give you the sensations well before your brain happens. And it could be days, months before something happens, but your body knows something's up. So when I teach people about trusting their gut and listening to their body, it's more of that, not reacting to the emotions that's happening inside of their body. Does that make sense?
Sort of, a little bit, yeah.
So there's a fine line that we juggle. When people say trust their gut, they think, oh, I have this feeling I should go do something. But there's a sensation that's happening inside your body that's telling you that you're in danger. There's something wrong. I feel unsafe. Right. Now, the behavior cycles that you were talking about, the trauma loops that we go through, sometimes just based off of us being there, we want to relive that to try to clear it up.
Yeah, exactly. I see this a lot in relationships. People will they'll get the adrenaline rush when they meet someone. And like usually an adrenaline rush is like a stop, right? Versus like a move forward. Like an adrenaline rush is like the body is telling you something is wrong, but they'll want to move forward. And usually it's because they're replaying a relationship pattern. So that
you're so right.
That person gives them that adrenaline feeling. This is the best way, an example I know for this. And so usually the person that's good for someone, you don't get that response, right? It gives you like a calm response, or it's, you know, and it kind of goes with that whole thing, like nice guys finish last, because it's like the calming feeling you get around someone that's actually good for you versus like that adrenaline spike. And you're like, well, it must be love, or I'm like, or maybe it's your body warning you. I don't know.
Yo, you just busted so many relation therapists. Like, oh, you want to go with that passion, go with it. Like, you might want to slow down.
I want to think about that one twice. I'm not saying it's not fun. I'm not saying like, you know, everybody loves that feeling, but it's also like, okay, if your body is freaking out, right? Like maybe you want to check in about that. So that's just been my experience working with clients, is that gut response of adrenaline is not always the best thing.
Oh, so now, I see where I understand the two differences. It's definitions, right? It's what we define as it. And that's awesome. Like you're looking at the the sensations of adrenaline, for instance.
Yes.
When I'm saying that adrenaline raises your nervous system's heightened. And if I teach people all about learning how to access and judge where their nervous system is, which turns off the frontal lobe, and now they're in fight or flight. Right?
That's awesome. That's great.
So as we start to do that more and more, you start to understand what your body's actually telling you rather than reacting to anything.
Right.
So that is awesome. So with that said, what is now that we talked about all the different from your belief, you got a bunch of different behavior habits. Now a person's trying to clear up this trauma cycle, this behavioral loop, this self-sabotaging nature, and you want them to lead towards light, but they're trusting their gut, so they get themselves in trouble. I'm now, bringing this all together. What could they do to now clear up that action? Like now they're in their suck, and you want them to trust their light. How can they do that? What is one simple thing that they can do?
It's funny. I think of like a cartoon where someone's like, how did I get here again? Like you're like looking at the person across from you and you're like, how did I end up in the same pattern again, or something like that when you're talking. So when you're in the suck, I mean, I would obviously recommend the tools that I facilitate to get out of it, because it works with the subconscious mind, but I'm aware there's coaches, there's all kinds of different professionals out there that can help you with the subconscious mind. I have tools that work, and other people have tools that work.
It's something that an average Joe would be able to use. Somebody that's like, all right, I'm in trouble right now, and I don't have access to Alex because I'm going to go through your stuff, and I'm already eager because I already went through my
You can always get in your car and drive to
or
to another professional that does what I do. But if I didn't have access to somebody that does what I do, I would journal, because you can start to see your patterns in your journaling. I know it's a common answer, but you can really start to see the workings of your brain in your journaling.
But it's not common. I say it all the time, and I hear people like, oh no, I journal all the time, because everybody uses it.
Okay, but do they journal like this? Because I had a therapist one time, and she taught me this really cool trick. So are you left-handed or right-handed, Patrick?
I'm right, but I know where you're going. Go ahead, keep going.
Okay, all right. So you write from the adult self with your right hand, because you're right-handed, and then you let your we'll just call it the inner child. You'll let your traumatic self answer with the left hand, and you'd be surprised how that voice just like comes in, and you start to see like what the fear is in the body and what she or he is trying to tell you about the situation that's going on. So if I didn't have access to tools, I would start there, because you can start to see like what is going on a deeper level just by playing with the hands that you write with.
So I do a lot of the work with senses and things like that, and that's one of the skills that I use.
Also really good. Yeah.
One of the skills that I use is childhood learning, and everything's through bringing out your inner child. So your inner child works alongside with you, which means your subconscious mind, your limbic system, has the hand on the trigger, and you don't have to get triggered because he or she is right next to you, always understanding, always having a word. And writing with that opposite hand is epic in that way. I find a lot of people have a hard time allowing that left hand to answer without the right side jigging in. And that's why I normally do voices. So I would say an adult voice, you talk in your normal voice, and then do a squeakier voice for your little kid, and have it space and all that different.
Yeah, exploring those parts with the voices is also really powerful. So either of those techniques I feel like works well.
So like I'm gonna have so much fun with you, because now I know like we're kismet in that way. So real quick, I'm about to go through an activation as well as an initiation, but every time I try to explain it, I jam it up.
But that's beautiful, right? Because there's no like expectations. You're literally taking a leap of faith, which comes with the experiences that I facilitate. So anytime you move forward in the light, I know this is going to sound weird to your viewers, but anytime you move forward in the light, there's a challenge that comes up beforehand, and it's a test of faith. So you have to know on a soul level it's something that you want. That's why I'm a terrible salesman, because because the person has to be really drawn to it. It's not something I can sell to someone. It's at a point in someone's life where they're like really looking for more and looking to progress. And so for you, it's like, oh, like, you know, I've done all these things, and I don't want to speak for you, but I assume like, oh, I want to try this piece of progression, or I want to try this thing to see where it leads me. And like your soul is called to that. So yeah, you're about to go through an awesome life activation, which is a DNA activation, and then an initiation, which is basically getting initiated into, sounds funny, into yourself, but into that higher self, so that you can actually function from that state and not have to, yeah, like be able to have everyday just quick access to that higher self. So
I'm excited. I'm doing this very, very soon, and we're chatting more and more because I'm just fascinated about you. But if everybody else wants to know a little bit more where they can find you, where would they go? How can
yeah,
they get in contact with you?
so my website is empoweringpath.com. So it's the word empowering and then the word path, path.com. I'm on Instagram as Empowering Path. I'm on Facebook as Empowering Path. So if you just look up that, you should be able to find me. And it has good descriptions of, I offer all different types of healings, but the ones that Patrick is doing are the foundational, like big things. So that the life activation and the empower thyself initiation are the two things that I would recommend.
All right. So I want to thank everyone for listening in and Alex telling her story. But the thing I want you to really, really focus on is she made it through everything that should happen. Her pathway, she went all the way back to age 7. And it was an accident that got her to choose, one, to be a fighter, not to die. And it traveled throughout her life. And she went through the suck and she used her different tools to do stuff. So if you're in the suck, use the tools that we just talked about. Journal. But journal in the way where you ask a question with your right, answer with the left. Let your traumatic, your trauma, your inner child, whatever you want to call it, let something else answer from that other side. And let's see how that comes out and see if you can start to pull yourself out much faster. That's the name of the game. And that's how you bounce much higher, because we're always going to go through this wave. We only see a straight line once. That's when you're dead. And as you can see, Alex does not die.
I have not done it.
So I want to thank everyone for listening in. Thank you for listening in, and see you on the next one. Bye.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.